Hi, good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to my daily session on mindset and hope you like the change which I did yesterday in terms of the sequencing. So I'll continue that today, which would be to start with the weekly sharpening topic, which is in this case, in today's case, basics, talking about basics, fundamental basics of professional work. And then I talk about why, what mindset is, and then speak about the uh, very briefly about the daily activity, daily standing meeting, which is, I think, the core. It's like the heartbeat. And then I lastly talk about the three topics for this week's activities as far as the quarterly business plan is concerned. So let me start with basics. I think you must have heard in any company, your team, and it's quite common in any company that I go to that our biggest problem is planning. Have you heard of that statement? Planning is blamed as the biggest challenge. It's quite natural, quite common, and in fact, it's the case even with big companies where they've got a fantastic planning department too. Do you know what the reason is why the planning is blamed as to be bad? Any guesses? Is it because the guy who's planning doesn't know how to plan? Planning is very simple. Planning could be as simple as planning your journey to go to Delhi, planning your vacation, planning your picnic, planning your party on a weekend. Everything is planning, right? How many times do we blame planning as being the culprit for the vacation or for the party or for the picnic not going good? Do we do that? Whereas in professional work, it's quite common to blame planning as the main culprit for everything. Do you know why planning is blamed so often? Have you given a thought to that? Have you tried to understand what could be the contributor to that? Let me tell you. Let me explain. It's simple. It's the realistic planning. It's not just planning. Realistic planning. The ability of a good planner is to really make a plan which is realistic, which is something which can be achieved, which can be realized, not something which is done with ideal conditions, ideal assumptions. Whatever assumptions you have should be validated, and then only the plan has to be done. Like, let me take the example of a vacation that we want to plan. You check out as to what the weather conditions in that location is, what are the uh, various tourist attractions available. Maybe you even do a plan as to what you could be doing for the 3 days there when you're staying on a vacation. Maybe one day you want to just chill around in the hotel, just in the resort or wherever you went to, and then just relax, chill around, nothing, do nothing at all. That's one day. And then you look around as to what options are there in that resort, in that location, before you do the before you take a decision that you're going to go to that location, don't you? Similarly, when you look at planning a trip to Delhi, for example, for whatever activity, could be to visit a family relative, could be on a business trip, you look at as to what the weather conditions there are. And based on that, you decide what you need to take, what you don't need to take. And if you are going to Delhi for the first time, try to talk to people who have already gone there to understand what their experience was. And you gather a lot of information before you do the plan. Is it correct? Is it correct or not correct? And you also try to make it as realistic as possible. When I say realistic as possible, when you know that going to a beach resort means that you need to spend a lot of time in the on the beaches, it doesn't make any sense in making a plan where you're going to be spending the entire day during touring, going to visit let us say the shrines and temples and various monuments. If you go to Goa, you need to at least reserve two-thirds of your stay only to spend on the beach, because that's the uniqueness there. Or if you go to the jungle, for example, you need to spend at least one third of your time or two-thirds of your time, half of your time in some kind of a jungle safari, jungle resort, going and being with the nature. And that's what the vacation is all about. So you really make it as realistic as possible, which can be implemented. The execution is basically because of the plan being realistic, not because people who are executing the plan are so wonderful, so competent, and so excited and so inspired, engaged with the plan that has been done, that they'll put it in place and it'll make sure that it'll work. No, not at all the case. It's because the one who did the plan gave a thought to all these things before he did the plan. That's again common sense, isn't it? There's no rocket science in that. And what happens at work, in fact? See, I'm in the planning department. I know that the customer order confirmation has still not come. And I know that because the customer order confirmation is not come, there is no advance available. But that's not my problem, right? That's the problem with the marketing department. And then because advance has not come, we are not in a position to give some advance to the vendor so that he can supply the materials, or maybe in some cases pay the money to buy the material, and or pay the money to buy the inputs required for processing that particular order. And therefore it's not possible. We don't assume that it will be not done. Therefore, let me talk to them and get a confirmation from them, or at least make sure that that's a assumption which everybody knows that is something which is not known. You can't really plan a vacation where you know that the flight, the probability of the flight taking off is very, very less because the flights are getting cancelled. And then you still plan the vacation with the same airline, and after that go to the airport and keep complaining that this airplane is not taking off. You would never do that, do you? And in this case, the situation is something similar to that. You do that because you assume that the job is not mine, because I'm in the planning department, he's in the marketing department, or she's in the marketing department, and it is her job to get or the sales department, her job to get the order and get the advance. So if that is not happening, it's not my problem. I've done the plan correctly because the plan met the requirement of my organization and also met the requirement of the customer. One example. The other example, let us say that there is a festival coming up, which is Diwali, for example, or Christmas, during which people will take leave, or they don't even take leave. They just go away to visit their parents and families. And during that time, you have got some additional load. Therefore, you don't consider that at all in your plan. You just say that, okay, if they're not there, then somebody else has to come. That's the job of the production guy or the job of the HR guy. And plan it out that way. Or let us say that the consumables are not available. They have not been bought. The purchasing department has placed an order, but the supply is going to come only after 3 days. You don't consider in the plan. And a lot of these things are fundamentally absolute rock bottom basics. So if the plan works in a company, it is basically because the planner who did the plan is somebody who is extremely grounded, extremely down to earth, and he's somebody who's making a plan which is realistic. Of course, there is another problem in the organization, which comes from the top management. You make a plan which is realistic, top management says there is no stretch here. Where is the performance to be shown? So make the plan a little more stretched and set. And there are bosses who give you targets which cannot be achieved at all. Because they think that by doing that, they are going to motivate you. They're going to really be making sure that you're always on your toes to somehow try to achieve the target. That doesn't happen at all. That doesn't happen at all. And worst thing is, in case it fails, the guy who did the planning has got the reason to blame that because his boss gave him a target which is impossible to achieve. He did the plan based on that assumption, and therefore it didn't work out. Classic is the productivity case. I used to work with Bosch and do planning in terms of capacity and delivery, what they have to do for plants across the world. And each plant has got their productivity levels. So there is a connection between relationship between the volume you can produce and the number of people you have. It's quite a clear thing, isn't it? If you have got 100 people, maybe you can produce 1,000. And if you have got 200 people, you could produce 2,000. However, if the 100 people could increase the productivity by 5%, which means they're able to now produce 1,050 instead of 1,000 because they increase the productivity. Then to produce 2,000 with 200 people, you can produce 2,100 instead of 2,000. That's the assumption. So every company wants to give a challenge to their team, say that you are going to increase the productivity. So when you are planning, you are already planning with an assumption that the productivity will be increased to achieve that particular goal. You can say it's a stretched plan. It can be a very what should I say, ambitious plan. A lot of jargons are used, management jargons are used. In my personal opinion, it is absolutely a catastrophe to do that, because by doing a plan where you know from the start the risk of failure is very, very high, you are basically written down and signed a document which is going to demotivate your team, because no team wants to fail in their particular goal, in their objective. So what is the best thing to do, in my wisdom, in my experience, is to set a 100% realistic target based on whatever you have been performing earlier, which means you should have somewhere a kind of a benchmark or some kind of a reference which says what was your previous best, and previous best under normal conditions. I remember I did a project in Bangalore, Bosch, when I was there between 99, no, it was during the year 96. I was here only for about 6 months between my stay in Germany and Brazil and Germany. So I was given a project to increase the volume of production of a particular product to 1,600 per day. Those days we were manufacturing 1,200 per day. So I, with all my energy, 99, I must have been 34 years old. So with 35 years old, with a lot of energy, I went around talking to everybody, convincing everybody, and pushing them, energizing and pumping them up. And then we spoke to vendors, we spoke to everybody, and in 1 month we did 1,600. We were normally doing 1,200 only. In that month we did 1,600. And then my to-be boss in Germany, he had come over to Bangalore for a visit, and then he came, and then I was introduced to him as to, this guy is going to be coming to Germany and you will be interviewing him and all that. And then, okay, he said, fine, good. And then look forward to seeing you in Germany. Let me interview you there in Germany. And then my director managing director told him very proudly that, look, this guy has done a project, and this month, the previous month, that the month in which I did the project, we achieved 1,600 components, 1,600 products per day. And he said, oh my God, that's really good. But then that's just a peak. It can't happen. And unless you are consistently achieving 1,600, only then does it make any sense. Otherwise, it's just there for the sake of being there, which is something which is extremely correct. Whenever you talk about the previous best should be under normal conditions. And that normal conditions, we should also know as to why it was best. Only then can it be taken as the base for the planning, base for target fixing. So with that, I would say, why is it that this happens? Why is it that there is a difference? Again, back to mindset. Mindset is the reason. Why does our mindset drive to do that? Because our past has been like that. Mindset is basically what way we are behaving based on our past experiences, our emotional experiences, emotional memories, which then create a framework. And this framework in our subconscious is what I call as mindset. And mindset continuously drives predictions in real-time basis, not predictions in for the next 1 day or 1 year. That's daydreaming or speculating or whatever. But these predictions are something which is done naturally in the subconscious. It happens without any effort. And these predictions are the ones which define how we are perceiving the reality, how we are thinking by connecting the dots to establish the cause and effect, how we are deciding either by the gut or intuition, or by assessing the benefit and the effort involved. And finally, the way we are acting or responding with clarity and conviction. Now, these are the things and consistency also. These are the things which are driven by the mindset, by these predictions. And how do you change the mindset is what I'm going to talk to you very briefly now. Before that, I want to ask you whether you did that baby step exercise of talking to your friends, neighbors, relatives, or colleagues on their perceptions of people-to-people interactions, and what you believe or assume their perceptions were. Could you find the commonalities and differences, and then start a dialogue with them for establishing a common collective mindset? And that's a baby step to understand what mindset is all about. I spoke to you about an experience in planning. We are really good. And if you look at the guy who's working in the factory or in a company or in a software industry or in a airline company, and this person may be having difficulties in working along with his colleagues. He's okay, average guy, good guy, average guy, little maybe above average. Whereas at home, he's excellent. He's doing fantastic vacations. He's doing great partying. And do you think he's a bad planner? Do you think he's incapable of doing all those things? Wow, not at all. The chap is damn good. And why does it not work in the workplace? Basically because of the mindset. And that mindset is what I'm trying to address. And how do you change mindset is the question which I am going to answer now. There are two ways of changing mindset. In both the ways, it involves discussions and debates. Because that's the only way that mindset can change. Mindset can change only if you experience something emotionally. Only then will that get saved in your subconscious. And over time, because you have got about how many years? 60, 50, 30, 20, depending on your age. Years of experience in your subconscious is already planted there. It's so solid. It's like trying to bend a tree. It's not easy at all. What you need to do is very, very slowly, you start talking about creating new experiences which overrides the earlier experiences, and thus these becomes the basis for the framework, and that's how the mindset changes. For that, you need to have emotional experiences, emotional memories, which can come only when you are debating or discussing. When you are sitting in a classroom and listening to a teacher, it's good. There is some amount of emotional connect there because you are receiving something. You sense emotions, which are the internal emotions, which are called as affects or internal sensations, are the ones which directly link to your memories and experiences. And you definitely sense something when you are receiving information from an expert teacher in a classroom, in a training program. But that is not sufficient. You need to first receive the information, process it in your mind, then after that respond to that information, either responding by maybe answering a question, or you're trying to do an action, or you're trying to implement something. And once you have done that, you then value whether this experience of receiving the information, receiving the knowledge, receiving some new insight, and responding really is valuable to you or not. And that's the valuation which takes place. Then you organize that valuation, whatever you did, amongst the others which you have got in your mind. Now, it's a very, very structured process. And then you start internalizing it. So just by listening to a classroom, nothing will happen. Debates and discussions are that way are very good, because when you are debating and discussing, it's extempore, right? It's not possible that you keep on, somebody asks you a question and you keep on looking at some paper to give a reply, read it out. It's not possible, because you don't know what question the other person is going to ask. And that's a fantastic methodology for changing the mindset. There are two ways of doing it. One is you engage in discussions and debates on specific contextual topics. Because let us say if you are working in the planning department, there is no point in changing a mindset on how to buy a new car. If you are in the sales department, there is no point in trying to change the mindset as to how to establish a new vendor, or how to plan a new manufacturing process. You look at those things which are important to you. In the finance department, you need to understand how to forecast the cash flow. What is the best way of doing it? There's no need for you to understand how the product needs to be developed. What kind of endurance tests have to be done on the product? How do you ensure that the endurance test results and experiences are built into the product for ensuring the robustness? That's not necessary. Therefore, a focused and a contextual debate is extremely important. That can be done on your own, or you could use doHow, which is invented by me. That's my creation and contribution to the world. You could use doHow for contextual debate on those topics which is important to you. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to participate and to conduct regular reviews. Because during reviews also, whether you like it or not, discussions take place. Discussions take place giving rise to positive emotions, giving rise to negative emotions, giving rise to joy, to at the same time frustration, because there are both the activities going on. One is when you achieve the target and somebody patted on your back. When you didn't achieve the target and when it is very, very unstable, somebody possibly blasted you. What the hell are you doing here? You've been working here for such a long time. How come you're not able to achieve something? And that brings in a lot of discussion. And this discussion also changes the mindset. And that's the reason, a primordial reason, why I talk about the daily review and the weekly sharpening and the monthly reviews and the 3 activities for the week as per my 3 quarterly business plan. And that's the only reason why I do that, because that also would change the mindset. But that is a much more robust, proven method, which is done everywhere. Whereas doHow is still nascent, because we only applicated with some companies who have got phenomenal results. And of course, the others have a lot of, what should I say, inhibition in trying to accept it. Because when you are doing a doHow, when you are doing such discussions, obviously you become vulnerable. So vulnerability means that if you are not good, then your weaknesses get exposed. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, you get a fantastic opportunity to learn. And why do you think the weaknesses getting exposed is a problem? Because all of us are mostly with fixed mindset. I think I spoke some time back about the fixed and the growth mindset, fixed and agile mindset. Since most of us are brought up with the fixed mindset, the threat of getting exposed, threat of vulnerability really gets us into jitters. Whereas if you had agile mindset, you would embrace that. You would say that, okay, fantastic. Yeah, this is the place where I have to go to, because I need to get a challenge. I need to really look at what's something new, and that's going to take me to the next level. So that's a very, very brief explanation for debating and discussing. Now let's come to the review meetings. Daily meeting, I'll only talk about the 7 topics. I think we are already almost there. One is the scoreboard. Then after that comes the success and failures from yesterday, rolling plan for 5 days horizon, deviation management, teamwork, seamlessness, then recognition and celebrations for the participants, something to really give that energy. Then finally, escalation with in consensus on it could be for a report, or it could be on seeking some approval, seeking support, or it could be just to give a heads up. So that's the daily meeting. And then on a weekly basis, yesterday I spoke briefly. Now today also I will not take much time, and maybe tomorrow or day after I'll take a little more time in explaining that. First activity this week is to be the bottom-up business plan. That means for the next quarter, which means you get your entire organization to start thinking, what do they want to do the next quarter based on whatever they have achieved the earlier quarter and what they are going to achieve this quarter. What are they going to do next quarter with some amount of improvement? Again, realistic, not really out of the blue, take the ground level and from there see what you can do in a realistic way. That's the first thing. Second is, and then don't have any buffers, because normally bottom of business plan will really look crazy. I've had that experience, and then after that I say that I have had a case where somebody comes and tells me that, look, I've got 20 people now, I need 15 more people to at least accomplish what I'm accomplishing now. I said, oh, are you really crazy? You have got 20 people, and with 20 people you're doing whatever you're doing, and to do the same thing you say that I need 15 people more. Doesn't make any sense. So therefore, be a little very realistic in all aspects, not just a headcount or the budgets, everything. Cash flow, projections to be done, then policy and guidelines to be reviewed, and finally to make sure that your processes are mapped and the process maturity is checked. I think most of you know the process maturity is checked using what is called a CMMI model, from a process being chaotic to a process being sustained and continually improved. And that's something which you need to do also, 5 levels of process maturity. And so that you know where you are, so that the planning for the next quarter becomes more robust and good. So thanks a lot for watching. And do write to me at dinakar@samuthána.com. Any comments, any suggestions, any critique. I would like critique because I like to improve. So that's something very important. And don't forget to talk to your neighbors, friends, relatives, or colleagues and their perceptions of people-to-people interactions and what you believe their perceptions are. And find out the commonalities and the differences to start a dialogue and for establishing a common collective mindset. With that, thanks a lot for watching. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And tomorrow, it may be that I do a little late in case I get delayed, because tomorrow I'm going to Mysore. If I'm going to get too much delayed, then I'll do the live session on day after tomorrow. So please bear with that. Thanks a lot. And see you either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, depending on what time I come back to Bangalore. Thank you.